Hello, and thank you once again for tuning in to Profiler with me, Jeremiah. This evening, we have in conversation Sayce Holmes-Lewis. He's a chief executive of Mentivity, which is a youth mentoring program. We have vital topics to discuss this evening. So keep it locked on Truth Music Radio, where the truth is always the right choice. Sayce, welcome to Profiler.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Just thank you, man, for taking the time out to have this vital conversation in such a time as this. How's your day been so far?
Hectic. It's been for the last 3-4 months, man. It's been crazy, but listen, I give thanks every day. I'm grateful that I'm able to do something I'm passionate about, so I can't complain.
Right. Well, let's get into it because we have a lot to discuss during our time. All right, I want to start from you growing up, Sayce, if you don't mind. Let's start from your parents, your mother, your father. Tell me, where's your mom? How is she?
Yeah, she's good, She's a powerful, strong woman. Jamaican descent. So she was my grandfather and grandmother. All the grandparents actually came over as part of the Windrush generation to this country to help rebuild the country, but also provide a better life and help those back home. So, my mum's good. Mum's side is Jamaican, dad's side is Bajan. So, mum and dad are good. Give thanks for that. Grandparents. I've only got one left now, but she's a special lady. But my mum's good. Everyone's good.
Good. So you've had the best of both worlds, if you will. That's the Caribbean world.
yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Definite, man. Definite.
Yes.
Blessed in that respect.
Yeah, man. You've been to the Caribbean?
Yeah, plenty of times, man. I've been to, Jamaica. I went to Jamaica for the first time in 2018. It was actually to bury one of my mentees. It was the first time I went, and I actually went back for a holiday. And I never wanted to go and do the whole tourist kind of thing. I wanted to just do the authentic family, live like a local, and get a real, feel for the culture and where I'm from. So when I did do that, the first time, it was actually a special and unique trip. I've been to Barbados probably up to 10 times.
All right.
Trinidad, Tobago. I've been quite a few.
Good. So you grew up with both parents, Sayce?
Yeah, initially, for the first 8 years of my life, I did. And then my father left the household when I was age 8. And that was a kind of stressful time for me because, my father was my superhero at that time. I didn't understand why he left. There was no real explanation or any dialogue. So it left me kind of struggling for about 6 years, between 8 and 14, just trying to understand it. And, my dad tried his best, but, I didn't get what I needed from my dad, put it that way. And I understand that now. And I got love and respect for him in that respect. But, he did his best, and you can't begrudge anybody for trying their best. But I needed a little more.
How did that, a similar story when you look at some of these youths today, which we're going to discuss as we go on into what you do with Mentivity. But it's a similar story when it comes to, a household that haven't got a father in it. How did that make you feel? In terms of, did you find yourself feeling angry growing up? Or isolated?
I had a lot of anger. I'm the oldest of 7.
Yes.
So there was a lot of pressure on me in that respect. The initial for my dad was the first 4. So there's a lot of pressure, on me being the next kind of in line in the household. And I had a lot of underlying anger because, as I said, my dad tried his best, but it wasn't what I needed as a young man.
Yes.
And I needed more support. I needed more from him as a father and as a man, which I didn't get. So that left me very frustrated, very angry. And just as a misguided young man in society, even though I had a great family behind me, I needed and wanted my dad. And my mum is a phenomenal woman. She raised me and the rest of us to the best of her ability, and she's a superhero in that respect.
Yes.
And I was trying to find my way in the world, and I grew up on the Ellsbury estate, so in between Old Kent Road, Campbell and Peckham, and back in the 80s, the Ellsbury estate wasn't the best place to live. A lot of issues with drugs. violence. Police didn't come into the blocks because they got lost and they could be sitting ducks and that. So, but it was a very good community. I learned a lot about community and family there on the Osprey estate. Knew all of my neighbours, knew all the kids around there. You had your little kind of altercations and, your little fights back in there, your little fist fights, but they were all friends, so it was a very multicultural community, but there was also very kind of white influence in terms of obviously culture, not far from Millwall Football Club. So between the age of 8 and 14, I quickly realised that I was different from other people and that I was, I got treatment from other people which wasn't reflective of who I was as a person. It was just based on the colour of my skin. So that left me angry too. And then just education, wasn't feeling education and just felt like I was lost in society.
Let's go back up a minute, Sayce, if you will. A lot of these youths like we touch on, we've just touched on with, just living at home with the mother and so on. What did these young men need in their lives that their mother couldn't provide? I mean, what is it that a father can add?
The father can add the understanding.
Yes.
It takes a man to raise a man, and it's important that man is someone that's progressive and accountable, and that earns respect, because respect isn't given, it's earned. And I think that with women, black women especially, they've had to fill the void because the men haven't done what they needed to do. And that's not just because they don't want to, it's because they're ill-equipped. They don't have the means to do so. And I'm realizing now with generational trauma and trauma in life in general, why certain black men are unable to do it, because the struggles of just being a black person in this world is just, it's hard, man. It's hard. So you find different ways to kind of deal with that stress and deal with that pressure. And sometimes, it's the negative ways and just not just, shirking the responsibility. So I think with women, it's about embracing men in the community that have the traits that you want to see in your child and getting them to invest time in your young people. And it's very important, man, because we need to do more as men. We need more men in education, black men in education. We need more black men to give up their time for other people's children, because time is love when it comes to young people. When you invest time in a young man that's not your child, that young person quickly realizes that, you know what, he has no obligation to be here. My dad's not here, but he's here. That's love. He's showing me love. And for that, I'm going to show that love and give him that time. And I'm going to enter into that voluntary engagement because this person is giving me that time. And that's the most valuable thing that you can give to young people. So it's important. So I think we need to embrace men that are willing to be men for other children and father figures for other children. And you've got a network of people So I would say you don't do it by yourself.
Yes. Based on your experience, Sayce, why is it that fathers are absent from the homes, if you will, in a nutshell? Why are fathers absent?
Well, it's conditioning. If you go back to slavery, and that was what happened, that family was broken up. The men were groomed to breed women. And that is the
Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yeah, they talk about the Willie Lynch syndrome as well. Yeah, I mean, you can call it different theories, but that's one obviously theory. But the fact is that during slavery, that men were like literally treated as animals in the sense that, right, you're going to go and breed with that woman because we need a stronger slave child to do this or do that. And that is the condition and the generational trauma I was just talking about that's been passed on subconsciously. And so when you're used to doing something, humans were creatures of habit. When you have experienced that is passed on through your DNA.
Yes.
So subconsciously, it's like, just like when a bird, is born, and then it flies for the first time because it's in its DNA. It's supposed to be done. So this is something that we've learned, and I would say it's learned DNA in the sense where men have been used to breeding more than one woman because that's what they had to do during slavery.
Yes.
So, and it's also role modeling that behavior. When you see that as a young man, you see your father being promiscuous, you see him being with 2, 3, 4 different women, you think that's the norm. So you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do that. And that's the thing that we've got to really undo. And we've got to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of work within ourselves as men. And we need to come together as collectives and talk about the things you've never spoken about. The issues that we face, the trauma, the behaviours that we implement in our daily lives because we think it's right, but it's actually quite childish and it's quite, I've been that man.
Yes.
I've been that man. and I've been the person who's been promiscuous, and I've done things which I shouldn't have done, and I'm not proud of it. But it's about change and how you react to making your mistakes. And I've been working really hard to be a man that is upstanding and that is dedicated to a woman. And right now, I'm single. I'm not focusing on any woman. I'm just focusing on my son. So it's important that you have that time to build yourself up so you can provide for others.
Yes. A recent studies says, a recent research shows that children in fatherless homes are more likely to drop out of school, exhibit behavioral problems, end up in the criminal justice system, suffer unemployment, and they're at greater risk of substance and drug abuse. Can you validate that?
I can validate it to some degree. Not all children will have that, and it is a phenomenon within society, and we see it a lot with our work at Mentivity in the schools. Because what you got to understand in the home, everything's about balance.
Yes.
You've got to have a man and a woman, pushing and pulling at different times, because at different times a woman's going to lead, and women are natural leaders, and they have insight which we don't have as men. We're more doers and problem solvers, and rather than strategists in that respect, especially in the home. And if you don't have that, there's going to be an imbalance, and that imbalance is then passed on to the child. And then they look for that imbalance. If it's a lack of a father figure, they look for it in the most viable place, which isn't going to be schools, because there's no black male teachers. There's minimal black male teachers. It's the streets. So when you look to the streets, look at the behavior being exhibited, and you think that that's the norm because you're young. You don't know any different. So you're in an environment which has been created by adults, and you're just doing what you think is the right thing. So that's where we have the issues. And then you have the substance misuse, because you are detached from society, and every day you're getting up and you're living the same nightmare. What does that do to your psyche? So to ease the pain, then you turn to drink, you turn to the betting shops, you turn to drugs, or you turn to selling drugs, and you end up taking your own drugs because of the stress that you're undertaking and the trauma. And the underlying thing here is trauma, is that the trauma that we're not dealing with when they're young people, and that we're creating in our young people, is allowing them to get to this point where they then hate themselves to some degree, and they're able to abuse themselves. And it's about self-love. And if you don't have self-love and self-care and understanding of self and a foundation, then you're not going to be able to do anything that you want to do in life, and you're going to be susceptible to abuse and substance misuse and things like that.
Yes. What would you say to this? The system in the UK is this, that it would seem that if you are single, you are being incentivized by the government, if you will, to continue that single life, rather than if you're married. It's like they promote that single lifestyle. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. There's, in the media, in the perception of us as a black community, is that we're just a bunch of people that have no homes, no families. That it's just single black mothers, and that image of an angry black woman. And these are the narratives that are fed to us in the films, in the media, in the narratives. And it starts to become a self-fulfilling prophecy in that respect, because you keep seeing it. And when people keep saying that this is what they see in the community, you start to believe it and you start to act it out. But the issue is that that's not always the case. I know many children that I've worked with that come from two-parent homes who are probably worse than one that has a single mother or a single father. Because it's not just about the environment, it's about what they want to do. It's about children trying to find out themselves in the world, which is quite crazy, if I'm honest. Like when you're a young person, you look at it as an adult. If I ask you what your outlook is on the world, you might say it's quite negative. Like, you know what, I don't have much hope. If you feel that way, imagine what a 5 or 6 year old that's forming their worldview is thinking.
True.
Some of them just give up before they started. And that's the issue that we have, is that us as adults in the generation, and I talk about the black British and black African and Caribbean, we failed our young people. We failed a generation of young people because we haven't done enough to keep that village together. Yes,
I agree. What was school like for you then, considering you felt that anger? How did that translate in the classroom?
Oh man, I thought I was the class clown, the joker, always trying to be the person that made people laugh. And it was all about trying to make myself feel better about who I was or who I wasn't. And because my dad wasn't around, I was very sad, very upset and heartbroken. And especially in instances where he would say he was going to come and pick me up and he didn't pick me up. That does a lot to a young person, because you're experiencing, heartbreak, week on week, but you're also have low levels of trust, and even to this day, I have low levels of trust and empathy in people when it comes to my feelings. And, you know, it felt like I was being lied to, so that underlying anger.
Yes.
Whenever I went into school environments, male teachers I didn't get along with, playing football, male, you know, figures of authority like referees, because my dad wasn't around to do certain things. I literally subconsciously be like, no, don't care. And when a man did try to get close to me, I'd be like, no, you're not my dad. And I just literally just push it away.
Yes.
So school was difficult not because I wasn't capable, it's just because it wasn't stimulating.
Right.
You know, they have something in America called the fourth grade syndrome, where young people, black boys, start to break off from the education system and detach, because they realize quite quickly that it's not for them, and it's quite Eurocentric rather than Afrocentric. Plus, it's not going to be more viable for them to get their grades or get their GCSEs than to go into the streets and actually make money and potentially support their household.
Yes.
Because they're in a situation financially where, because there's only one person contributing to the household because the fathers are absent, not all, but some, and not contributing, there's an economic imbalance. So then a young man of 13, 14 is saying, you know what, I don't want to see my mum struggle.
Yes.
I want to move to the streets. So I can't go and get a job at Burger King. That's not going to help me. A job at JD, that's not going to help me. I need G's. I need money. I need, you know, £100 here and there to help. And I've come across 9-year-olds paying their parents' rent. You know, £1,000 a month. They're paying their parents' rent because of the things that they're doing on the streets.
Yes.
9-year-old. That's where we're at now.
Wow. And did you have a vision of what you wanted to become?
I had several visions. Oh, man. Young, you know, you say, I want to be an executive or I have a private jet.
Yes.
I mean, look at now, I'm a chief executive, which is so funny. I never actually realised that. But I wanted to play professional football because of Ian Wright. You know, I'm an Arsenal fan, and Ian Wright was the person that basically inspired me to change a lot in my life.
Yes.
And I played football because I saw him and I wanted to be like him. And when I realised that my birthday was the same as his and I was a striker, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. It's my destiny. You know, so I really put my efforts into that. And then education, I just realised it wasn't for me. You know, learning about the Tudors and the Stuarts and things like that. I was just like, I don't want to hear about this.
Right.
I've been told about Timbuktu. I've been told about different things, you know, at home. So where's this supplementary education?
Yes.
And I switched because it didn't challenge me. Like, I could do these essays, I could do these things, I could do the maths, I could draw,
yes.
I could play sports, I could do everything, but it wasn't stimulating for me. So I didn't really want to study, even though I was told all the time, yo, you're an academic, you're so intelligent, you're going to go to university, you can do this. And it just wasn't something that I wanted to do.
Yes. I want to come back to the football later and parallel that with what's going on in the world today. But you mentioned at the top of the program that you grew up on the notorious Aylesbury estate, which is located in Walworth in southeast London. Tell us, you mentioned some of the stuff that was going on that estate. Highlight that for me again and just give me a bit more detail of the day-to-day living growing up on that estate.
Yeah, listen, the list never worked. You know, people urinating in the stairwells, you know, paraphernalia, needles, you know, people that were, you know, prominent drug dealers on the estate, prominent drug users. There was an area called Bagshot, which was literally where most of the drug users lived.
Yes.
And those boys and young men were around my age, and I see them now around, and they look about 55 rather than 35. And it's really sad. As I said, it was a tough estate because if anyone's been there, you know, back in the day, it was grey, you know, grey day, if it was raining, it was just unappealing. Living on top of the people. It's
been described as hell's waiting room.
I know, I've seen that. And I'm like, where did this come from? This is a new one. You know, I lived there all my life, and I'm like, I never heard this until the other day. But, you know, so some people, it was hell. You know, like, we had issues, you know, with mice and rodents, not because we were nasty people, because the estate was terrible. It was literally like a forgotten generation. And I remember when Labour got elected in 97 and Tony Blair came to the estate talking about, yes, we are not the forgotten generation, the New Deal for communities, all this, all that. And I was there. And I was just like, this is lip service, man.
Yes.
Like, you knew that we were forgotten about, and we were trying to move off that estate for years, and it took us, gosh, I was 26 when we moved off the estate. 2006, I was 20, there's 26 years of my life I lived on that estate. And Yeah, it's a very prominent part of me. It's ingrained in my DNA, and I'm grateful, that I live there, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been so, adept at navigating situations. Like, to get to my house, I could go about 25 different ways. So for your mind, and I realized this walking around there the other day, to your mind,
yes.
You're saying, you know what, I can get around obstacles to get to home. I know there's different ways to get. So there's no, in life, what I made the similarity now is that in life, there's no one way to get to your destination. There's no one way to get to reach and be successful. And that's one thing that the Ellsbury Estate taught me. And the real sense of community and coming together and helping each other, even though it wasn't a great place to live, is something which is giving me a grounding and a foundation on which to build upon. Yes. And I'm grateful that I grew up there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really am.
When you look at these estates across England, similar to the one we are speaking of now, the Aylesbury Estate, they are similar, Sayce, in constructs to prison. Does this do something to the psyche? I mean, that make or use perpetuate that the negative what we're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Because when you're living on top of people, you don't have much space, you're overcrowded. Again, you don't have your own room, you don't have your own space. Like, that is very difficult in itself. But when you say that you're from the Aylesbury Estate, people look down on you. And I will say it proudly and watch people's responses. Aylesbury Estate, oh gosh, Peckham, oh gosh. That's exactly the response that you get. But I'm proud of it. But some people are not proud of it. And some people, it held them back so much in life that they have that prison mentality, because when they did try to leave and go out there, no one accepted them because of where they were from. Yes. So when you're in a situation, you're in an environment where everything's pretty much provided for you to some degree, there's no real reason for you to leave. I know people that have not left the Aylesbury Estate. I know people that have not left the area, gone to neighbouring areas. Wow. And children that I asked them to meet me, like, oh, he lives on the Aylesbury Estate. Meet me at Waterloo Station. Yes. Where is that? I'm like, what? You're 18. You don't know how to get to Waterloo? No, I've never been there in my life. I'm thinking, that's a madness. That's crazy. And because of what we're going through in the whole postcode wars and the whole kind of mobilization of that gang mentality, which is linked to prison mentality, we're keeping our young people in these areas and restricting their growth and restricting their kind of progression in life, because they feel that they're in a prison. They can't go to a postcode because they know that their life could potentially be in danger. Yes. So it's all about the environment. And as I said, as adults, we failed this generation because we haven't created a village mentality whereby we're mixing our children together from a young age from different areas. That we're not taking the onus that, the government, what are they doing? They need to do these football pitches. No, just set up a little football club in the park, Burgess Park, get some cones, invite some kids down. Yes. Get them to know each other from a young age. So when it gets to that point where it's kind of beef or that kind of mentality, no, I know that parent, I know their children, that's like my cousin, I know them from when I was young. We don't have that anymore. Yes. We just have enemies. And the parents, we've got a massive part to play in that. Yes.
So we look throughout London, if you will, and through Brixton and so on, and we see examples of gentrification everywhere. We see there was a famous I forgot the estate in Camberwell, but my question is, Sayce, with examples like what we have here, like the Aylesbury Estate and some of the more notorious estates, is gentrification then, would you say that that's, tearing down those estates and putting something up fresh? What would you say about people who say that's a good thing?
I say you have to really look at it and understand it from both perspectives. Yes. What the issue is that it's social cleansing. That's basically what it is at its finest. And it's a way of ousting the people that's actually built up that community and built up that area and gave it its identity, and you're getting rid of that whole identity. Yes, however, on the other side of things, when you don't own anything, this is what happens to you. And this is our fault because of our own mentality. We haven't kept the partners going. We haven't had that mentality, for the Windrush generation that came over here, that collective spirit. We don't have that anymore. Where we used to have the partners, and one person would get their house, and you would live in that house, and your grandparents said, all right, cool, we've got our money, we're going to move to this house. We don't own anything. We don't keep the money in the economy. Yes. So when you don't do that, you then don't have any power, because that's what holds power here, is the pound. that pound coin holds power. And when you don't have any power, you don't own any land. So then, when you don't own anything, then you can be dictated to by whoever.
Yes.
So when they start to raise rent, you're saying, well, I can't afford it because I'm not in control of my financial destiny. And that's our own fault. Yes. Because we haven't upskilled ourselves enough. We haven't learned enough from our elders and taken the good things from what they did and contribute to this society in Britain. We haven't done enough, and we haven't continued those traditions. And I feel that right now there's an opportunity for us to go back to that and really kind of develop our own strategy and keep the money in our community, keep it black owned, own businesses, so that you can create employment for young people, which is so important. I'm so passionate about that. I'm creating employment for people within my community through my organisation, and opportunities for young people to make money, but also to understand that the power of retaining that money is important, because when you earn it, you value it.
Yes. And
we've got to get back to that.
Yes. I want to move on to Mentivity next. But before I do that, let me ask you this. What is one of your earliest memory when it comes to racism growing up, and how did that impact you?
Man, I was as young as 8, man. Like
8?
When that first happened at school,
yes.
I got called a monkey and look at your rubber lips and your hair and all this stuff like that, and you're ugly. I remember that, and I remember being confused and just looking around and thinking, whoa, I'm lost. I don't really understand, and like I didn't feel prepared for it. And I think I've had so many instances of racism, like in every country I've been in.
Yes.
In every situation, but as a young man, I got that a lot. But the things we solved that with fist fights, back in the day, it wasn't nothing to do with knives or not whatever. Yes. I'll catch that one person and I'll fight you, say, okay, cool, say that word again, and I'll do this again. And the problem now is, like, as I got older, was that I realized that racism was everywhere. Like, it was in football. Not getting the opportunities that I should have got.
Yes.
I was a very technical player. I didn't get opportunities because of the colour of my skin. I didn't get opportunities in education because of the colour of my skin. Although there were some fantastic teachers that really tried to hone my kind of potential, and I'll never forget them for that. But I just realised that quite quickly that I was seen as inferior by the status quo, and I actually felt inferior. I felt for a long time like I didn't want to be black, because I felt that was associated with negativity, and that I knew that I couldn't flourish. I actually wanted to change my name when I was around 9, from Sayce to Junior. I was like, I'd Sayce what my name, I didn't like it, and people would be cussing my name, and I've probably got the whitest last name in history, Holmes-Lewis. You know what I mean? You see Mr. Holmes-Lewis, you think, okay, that's a white guy, but I'm not. So, and I've experienced racism in football. I've been called the N-word by a referee. I've been called by another black player, and the referee didn't take any action. I've been abused. I lived in Ireland when I was playing professional football there. It's happened so many times, but the problem that I had when it happened to me when I was younger, I was ill-equipped to deal with it.
Right.
I also wasn't able to educate people on it, but also I took it to heart, and it was met with anger. Whereby now, you call me the N-word, that's your problem. That doesn't have any weight on me unless you can impact my life through that word.
Yes.
And that's fine. That's your issue.
Good. So let's move on to Mentivity. You are the chief executive of Mentivity. Tell the listening audience, what is Mentivity? When did this start? How did you come up with this? Talk to us.
Yeah, Mentivity is basically a culmination of my life's work. It's a mentoring organisation and a alternative educational provision. We provide support for young people, schools and parents through one-to-one mentoring and group conversation-based learning, which is a facet of youth work which we call informal education. So I'm a qualified youth worker. So the aim of it is to foster great educational attainment and engagement, but also to give them the support that they need to flourish, linking what they want to do to their passions.
Yes.
The problem that we have is that we only have 2 ways out of the hood. It's music or the arts, which includes sport. And that is by design. And we have fallen into that narrative, and that's our problem because we've allowed ourselves to be guided towards that.
Yes.
However, we're only 3.8% of the population. I do not subscribe to that whole BAME thing. I don't agree with it. We're not a minority. We're a majority in the world, so we can never be a minority.
Exactly.
And that's, again, it's about keeping you down. But for me, it's about linking young people's passions to their careers as early as possible.
Yes.
Because once you do that and you're passionate about something, you're willing to do the work and whatever it takes to make it happen if you're truly passionate about it. And one thing I say to young people is find your passion, dedicate yourself to it, and persevere no matter what. And those are the three facets of kind of, the traits that I've used in my life to help me get to where I want to get to. And Mentivity is an extension of my family. Really is what my mum has taught me, what she's instilled in me, and that sense of community, especially from the Aylesbury estate, and being a Caribbean young man.
Yes.
We're centered around community and family. So we've been running 4.5 years. I founded the organisation January 2016 after 2 back-to-back redundancies.
Uh-huh.
I've worked for a charity that uses sport to engage urban young people. I did that for 7.5 years part-time. I worked for Southwark Council as a community sports head coach for Southwark Community Games. I did that for 6 years. During that time, I helped players such as Jadon Sancho, Reece Nelson, Tammy Abraham on their journey towards, professional football, and they represented Southwark. So I've done so many different things within. I've been working in the community since the age of 16 in terms of coaching and refereeing and giving back to young people when I was a young man myself. But Mentivity, as I said, was the next stage. I got fed up with working for other people, experiencing the 2 redundancies. I just said, right, it's time to go out on my own and do what I can do. And I've always been a hustler. I've always been an entrepreneur, always been able to make money through kind of ingenious means. Even at school, buying straws and sweets early from the bakery and then selling them at school for twice the price. Then after lunch, it was 3 times the price because I know everyone needed a sugar rush. So then I would literally quadruple or triple my money for what I paid. I'd spend £5, I'd go home with £20. £25 because it's supply and demand. So what I'm doing now for Mentivity and what we're doing is supplying a service which is now in demand in terms of education and supplementing more formal education within formal education and helping young people along that journey and that voluntary engagement and building relationships with adults and understanding how to communicate, how to, emotionally regulate. And these are all things that you're not taught in school. And it's important that we're teaching young people this in a system which is Eurocentric, especially our black young boys and girls. The system isn't designed for them. It does oppress them on a daily basis. And we've had to infiltrate education to support young people in the way that's needed. Yes.
And you also use positive activities and sports, as it says here, the creative arts and technology to aid.
Yep. There's no bounds for young people, and there should be when it comes to dreaming. Like, young people should be allowed to dream, and that dream then becomes a passion, then can become a reality. But the thing is that, for me, example, my love was football.
Yes.
Because of my love for football, I then became a coach for my first professional contract that I obtained at 19. I had to coach as part of my contract when I lived in the Republic of Ireland to raise the awareness of football, because Gaelic football was the number 1 sport and hurling in Ireland. So football wasn't as lucrative or as big. So then that's when I started coaching. And then that's when I started working with young people and realizing that I actually can build rapport with young people very quickly.
Yes.
And they listen and respond to me. So out of that love of football, then it led to me doing youth work and actually then studying youth and community work at university at the age of 28, because I didn't want to do anything to do with education. And I realized within my job roles, if I didn't get this degree, I was going to reach a ceiling and I could never go forward, because that's what they value in this society, is that degree. So I studied youth and community work with sports development, which is my 2 passions.
Yes.
And, I excelled in that, and it was the right course of study that I undertook at the University of East London. And, I had to do it the hard way. I worked full-time. I studied full-time. I had a part-time role at this charity that works with young people using sport. I played semi-professional football. I had a family. I travelled. I did it all the hard way, but I had to because I wasted so much time as a young person.
I see.
So So I'm just trying to showcase what can be done through self-determination.
Yes.
And it's important to showcase it to the younger generation. And my son's 14 this month, and he's watching me. You know, he was born in 2006, and when he was born, I realized that I had to make a change in this world to make it easier for him to be a success. And that's what Mentivity is.
So how are the youth and the parents especially responding to the work being done?
Listen, the impact that we have is just untold, man. Because you can measure it to some degree, but if I could go into school and do a talk and say one thing that resonates with that young person, who will take that piece of knowledge or that piece of information and take it with them for the rest of their life. So we can visibly see that the impact that we have in schools is massive. We change whole attitudes towards education. Yes. We change whole cultures of schools based around our work. In terms of cultural equity, in terms of teaching equity, how to engage hard to reach young people, how to discuss, certain difficult subjects with young people, how to embrace them, how to praise them, how to understand that culturally, that as a teacher, when you're chastising a young person, they might be from Jamaican or, Caribbean descent, that when they're not looking at you, that's actually a sign of respect, because we're taught to not look at adults when we're being chastised or when we're being spoken to. So when we say that to a teacher who maybe comes from, from the suburbs, they're like, oh, I never understood it. Now I get it. So he wasn't being rude. Yes. Right. So then now you've actually just broken down a barrier to learning for a young person, because a teacher now understands your culture.
Yes.
To some degree. Yes. And that's the kind of thing that we do. And engaging the parents is the beautiful thing, because, we go to schools and children want to run up their mouth and tell us this and tell us that. But all right, cool. I'm going to come to your house and you're going to see me in your house drinking your drinks and eating your food and waiting for you to come home. And I'll have a good chat with your mum and dad and see what you're like in that environment. They're like, yeah, but fast forward next week, they put the key in the door. Who's in their house? Me. And they realize that, this guy's not playing around.
Yes.
Okay, cool. But then they understand that he took the time out of his day to come to actually talk to my parents and talk to me. Again, time is love. And that's when they realize, I've got someone out there that's actually fighting for me. As well as my parents. Yeah.
And have the government acknowledged and are helping to support Mentivity?
They are now, because of everything that's been going on. But I set up Mentivity as a limited company initially because I worked in the charitable sector, and unfortunately some charities, I would say, exploit people for their own financial gain. And it's not a dig at people that want to try and do things, but when you're trying to solve problems in communities, it needs to be the same demographic that you're trying to change and improve. So when you've got white CEOs coming in with their ideas of what they can do for the community, it's almost that white savior approach. And I was never someone that wanted to be that. So I decided to go to a limited company and to basically get schools to invest in us. And say, right, Mentivity are serious. They're providing the service and we're paying for that. And when you're paying for something, it holds more value, and you're inclined to actually be a part of that process.
Yes.
So we've now 6 figures every year. I've got 14 staff. It's difficult. I'm not going to lie. Without the funding streams, it's been difficult. We have received probably about 10% of our turnover in 4 years from the UK government in terms of funding.
Yes.
But the rest of that has been money that we've generated through our services, contracts with schools, grants, keynote speeches, teacher training. So now we've got the community interest company, which is the middle ground as a social enterprise. Now we're moving towards the charity, because now we want to have our charitable objectives, because now we've been recognized by the corporate sector, especially Goldman Sachs and other investment banks and law firms who actually want to donate to us, but we have to be a charity for them to be able to donate. So for me, it's about self-determination. It's saying, look, this kid from the Aylesbury estate has now created an organisation which now employs people. It includes his mum, who's a teacher.
Yes.
My mum is a teacher in the Senko, a nurture teacher. She works for us and works for Mentivity in that respect. It's important to showcase that we can be self-determined and we can get this going if we put in the work and we're willing to learn.
And is Mentivity only in the UK?
So no, we launched an academy in Kenya. We're due to launch Mentivity in Kenya at a few private schools and public schools. We have launched an academy and initiative with the Arms Around Africa Foundation, and we launched a football academy there in Uganda, in Kampala. That was in November last year. We're down in Brighton, in Worthing and Littlehampton now as well. I know that we're definitely going to be doing work in the USA because I've got, links there as well. But what we can offer in terms of our mentoring and professionalized mentoring and support is something that we can actually just take worldwide, and it's happening.
Yes.
It's already in process.
Yes, that's powerful work. Let's move on to the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, the issue of racial inequality has taken center stage as people across the world right now are protesting against police brutality after the death of George Floyd and other incidents. How did you feel upon seeing what happened?
I avoided it, for quite a while because I've seen too much Black death in my lifetime. And the fact of the matter is that it's traumatic. Even when you don't realize it's traumatic, it is. Subconsciously, it's things that you take with you. And I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to see another man dying at the hands of police, and in such a slow and brutal manner as well. Like basically strangling someone. That's the worst thing. Is that it's such a slow death, and someone calling out for their mum. It's just the worst thing to see, and it was just horrible. But when I did see it, I was angry. Of course, I was angry, and I just thought that this has got to change. And for me, the Black Lives Matter movement is great. I mean, you've got to do more research around it in terms of politically what it means and where the donations are going to and stuff. But essentially, as a movement, it's very powerful because look what we've mobilized in such a short space of time. And the issue that we have as part of the African diaspora is that we haven't had a strategy. We've never had a strategy in terms of how we're going to overcome this period of oppression, and subjugation and constant conquest and destabilization on the African continent. Like, we've been infiltrated, for too long by the powers that be. And, everyone's talking about reparations and things like that. Like, we're going through a period of unofficial reparations right now, where companies are saying, look, we've got this wrong, and the racial disparity, kind of the pay gap and, the gender pay gap and all these different things, because people are having to be made accountable. But in terms of the argument for reparations, I would say as Black people, we're not ready for reparations because we don't have a strategy. We have no strategy right now. And the problem is that if we did get reparations, then what would we do? Yeah. How would we go about it? But we can't get reparations because we don't have a nation state. When you don't have a nation state, it can't be recognized by the World Court. So to submit a claim for reparations, you have to submit it to the World Court, who would then say, right, we recognize your sovereign nation, and that's fine. We can now actually process this. We don't have our own land. You don't have the United States of Africa. We don't have our own military. So when you've got nothing like that in a situation where everything is militarized across the Western world, everything is based around that and that subjugation, you're basically going to a war with nothing, with your fists. Yeah. So we can't step on the world stage and say, right, well, we demand our citizens are not killed anymore. Otherwise, we're going to war with you. That's the only language that this system understands. Yes. And this is where we've gone wrong. So once we form a nation state and we unify Africa, as Bob Marley says, you've got to unify Africa, unite. We're not doing that. We have to do that. Once we do that, then we might have a chance in terms of getting reparations and doing what we need to do. But we need to strategize. Yes.
Tell me this, Sayce, regarding this Black Lives Matter movement. We are bombarded almost daily with black on black crime, abortion of black babies. We never ever get a protest. I don't remember anyone standing before an abortion clinic and say, you know what, let's do something about this, or, when we're killing each other. It seemed to me like it only matters when a white policeman is killing us.
Of course. And that comes back to the conditioning, doesn't it? That we have a lot of self-hatred in our communities and a lack of empathy in that respect, because it's almost that whole crabs in the bucket approach where you're trying to leverage yourself over other people that look just like you, who have been made out to be your enemies, even though they're not. Even though the enemy is infiltrating your community every single day, is causing problems within society every single day. So I think it's just about us really breaking down those barriers and having those discussions with each other, and an honest dialogue where we say, look, what is the strategy to solve this problem?
Yes.
How are we going to solve this problem? Why do you get yourself in a situation where you're having an abortion? Why have you chosen this man to be the father of your child? Why have you chosen this woman to be the mother of your child?
Yes.
Why are you having children when you don't have a financial foundation to do so? These are the things that we don't have. We're very impulsive beings. We're the most meek, beings on the planet. We haven't started any wars. We haven't, carried out any genocide. Yeah, we are very meek, and when you're very meek, I think we're actually angry with ourselves. That's why it perpetuates itself through violence, because it's reflective of how you feel about yourself. If for you to be able to kill someone that looks like you, it means you don't like yourself.
Yes.
You don't have any empathy, and that's what where we're at now, is that we have low empathy, and people don't care.
Yes, and we see rioters actually pulling down statues of whether it's ties to slavery. And what does it matter if they pull a statue down, seeing that the damage has been done already?
Of course, and this again is very tokenistic, but you got to understand who's taking down these statues.
Yes.
And it's the white radicals that are doing it. It's not us. The one in Bristol is white people said, no, we've had enough. Yes. We're taking this down. And the thing is how it is spun in the media like it's us.
It's us, yes.
And that's the problem that we have. And it's crazy because yes, it's cool, it's tokenistic, we're taking it down, and saying with the Confederate flag and blah blah. But cool, what are we doing to go forward? We're protesting, which is great, but what are we protesting about? What do we want? If someone asks us, right, guys, what do you guys want as people? I don't know. I think I want reparations, or I think I want a new house, or I want, Afrocentric education. We've got no understanding of what we actually want.
Yes. Let me touch, Sayce, if you don't mind, on your footballing career. And then we'll move on. There's two questions from that. You played, obviously, semi-professional football, right?
And I played professional.
Professional football. Years. My apologies. Professional.
Years,
Yes, professional.
I played semi-pro for 10 years as well.
Right.
Longer than that.
Okay, right. Now, let me ask you this. We normally see in the news and so on, we hear of football has been called monkey boys, and they throw banana skins at them, and the normal memes. Now, let me ask you, do you feel that that FIFA, is it a Footballing Management Association, do you feel that they've done enough to, combat racism within the sport?
Definitely not. But the thing is that you can't combat racism when you have racism in society, and this is where we're getting it wrong.
Yes.
And the problem is that we're looking to different facets of society to solve the problems that are ingrained in this system of oppression, and that's the problem that we have. And when you start doing that, then that's the problem. You're looking for other people to solve the problem. Like if we mobilize as a collective, if all the black players on the team said, okay, the minute we hear that, we're walking off. And the white players say, you know what, we're with you.
Solidarity.
Then it will stop tomorrow. Yeah, it will stop tomorrow, because the key thing here is about unification. And the problem is racism alludes to someone being less than human, which is obviously us.
Yes.
So even using the term racism, I want to get away from using the term racism, because it's oppression. It's subjugation.
Yes.
There's all these different things that are designed to keep us down. So I'd rather not call it racism, in the sense that it's not, because we're all one race.
Yes.
The worst thing that the establishment could have is having a unification of the people. And Malcolm X said it towards the end of his life, that, you know what, I had it all wrong. And that's why I love Malcolm. Because Malcolm says, you know what, I was calling these people white devils. I was wrong for that, because there are people out there that are white, that are allies. There are people that are black, that are not. So it's about unifying the collective people. And that's the most important thing. MLK said the same thing. Bob Marley says the same thing. We've got to unite.
Yes.
And it's not just black and white. That's the issue. It's not as simple as that.
Yes. And finally, on that footballing topic, Messi or Ronaldo?
Ooh, as a football purist, I go with Messi all day.
You go with Messi.
I'm a football purist. He makes the game look easy. Ronaldo's had to work to be where he is.
Yes,
that's the difference. That's the difference. Messi is a gifted player who can change the game by himself, It's crazy.
Let's move on to the police. An author, Kevin Maxwell, he's an advocate and former police officer, wrote in the Metro on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, 2020. This is what he said. He says, during this pandemic, overzealous policing towards black and brown Britons have been brought to the fore, with research revealing that BAME people have been fined more than the white population under coronavirus laws. Yes, yeah. What you say to that? And then let me quote you something else as well. This is your statement, which you stated on the 4th of July, 2020. You said, we've got to police with respect. We got to police with empathy and understanding. Talk to me about those things.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't fined, but I was stopped 4 times in lockdown. I stopped and searched twice. Another 2 were just stops, random stops, inverted commas. Yes, it's happened to us because we've allowed ourselves to be put in this position where we've not equipped ourselves to know, but also because we were more visible, because of the lack of finances that we have and living basically from check to check, we had to be out there to actually earn money to bring into the household, which shows you the financial inequality that we have within the society. This is why it's been said that we are more susceptible to have coronavirus. No, it's just because we're out more than anybody else, and we're exposed to it. That's what's happening. So yes, it's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy where the police have actually just targeted the community because of what they feel and their perception of a community. And it's just been overzealous. It's been unwarranted. There's been so many young people that I've seen that have been treated in a way which is just inhumane, it's dehumanizing, and the police have been overzealous. And there's been no justification for it, but the justification we know is conscious bias, is racial profiling, and their quotas. They've got to reach their quotas in terms of stop and search quotas.
Yes. And for the listening audience who aren't aware, you can just head on over to YouTube and just type in Sayce Holmes-Lewis, and it'll come up, the police stops, and you can check that out for yourself. And yes. Yeah,
I mean, sorry, just touching on that. I mean, just a quick synopsis. I was stopped and searched myself and my vehicle on the 5th of May. And I filmed the last part of it. I had enough. It's happened to me over 30 times in my lifetime. I was assaulted by a police officer at the age of 14. So I had a real negative outlook towards the police.
Yes.
And the problem now is that in that situation, I just decided that, you know what, rather than get angry with the police officers, I'm going to actually educate them. So let me educate them around why they stopped me. And that was probably the most important and pivotal moment in my life, because I actually had the control, and I said to them, look, I'm going to get you guys in a room and I'm going to educate you how to speak to young people and speak to the Black British community. And I made it happen. And that is one of the most powerful symbolic things I've ever done and achieved in my life. And it still hasn't really sunk in, but it's just using the systems that are used to oppress us for our gain. Once you understand it, when you do that, you're good to go.
Stop and search says has increased significantly, but what's wrong with that? What's the problem?
The problem is how it's being carried out. Me personally, I understand that we have an issue in our community as well as other communities around drugs, around serious youth violence. Of course, I understand it. However, 3.8% of the population doesn't equate for all the criminality in this country, but yet we're shown to be the ones, the purveyors of everything negative. And that's the media, and that's why we've allowed ourselves to be kind of stereotyped, because we don't own any media apart from maybe the Voice newspaper, who I don't know who owns that. But again, we need to have our own media outlets and control our own narrative. So the problem with stop and search is again, it's how it's carried out. It's how it's racially motivated. Like when I've been stopped, it's like, oh, well, look at the car. What do you expect? I mean, you're wearing a hat and you've got a beard. So I can't just be a human. I can't be a person. Like, I've got to be a drug dealer. Like, you just assume that in under 30 seconds. And that's your issue. But you have the power to influence my life and have an impact on my life. So stop and search, as I said, is disproportionate. We know that the Black community has been susceptible to that for years. To go back to sus law, it's always been something which it's been an issue. It's the way it's carried out, and it's with a lack of empathy, as I said, a lack of understanding, a lack of wanting to actually be a part of a community, because they just want to subjugate a community based on their stereotypes and their perceptions.
Yes. So what should we do if we're stopped by the police?
Ask if you've been detained, first and foremost. Am I free to go? Yeah, you've got to engage in the positive dialogue from your perspective, because it's important that you maintain control. And that's one thing that I've realized is maintaining control, maintaining your poise is important, but you need to educate yourself and rehearse this. I've been telling my son, he's 13, he's got to do this now, just in case.
Yes.
So once you ascertain whether you've been stopped or you're detained or not, then if you've been detained, then obviously you're going to have to cooperate, but you've got to understand and ask, right, where are you from? There's your police station. What is the purpose or the reasonable cause that has given you the reason to search me? If they can't validate that, then basically you should be free to go, because you have to have reasonable cause based on intelligence. If they don't, then again, you say, well, I don't think that this search is something that I should be consent to, because you're not telling me what I've done to warrant it. Yes. You know, just pulling out from a side road in a car, which happened to me, that doesn't warrant me being a drug dealer. Just going to buy dates from the shop doesn't warrant me being a drug dealer.
Yes.
You just assume. So again, it's all on the internet. We've got everything there. Like, it's different sections, 23, section 60s. I mean, we're going to start rolling that out in terms of educational pieces for Mentivity.
Yes.
You know, we're going to call it section boys and section girls, so that they understand the different sections and what they need to do or say when they've been stopped. And it's just about being informed and educated. Once you do that, then you have the power to actually overcome difficult situations.
Yes. You mentioned racial profiling, Sayce. Let me paint you a picture. A young black youth, hat on, pants sagging, or hoodies. What would you say to those who say that our youth oftentimes play into the hand of the police or the powers that be, if you will, just by the way they carry themselves?
They say the way they carry themselves, but the problem is that this is a part of a culture. You know, young people are part of a culture, which is something that they've worn because it's reflective of their identity.
Yes.
Like when I was younger, we wore certain things, because it's what was cool. It was important for us, and it was about identity. So these young people, again, are in an environment, but they've got elders in the community that dress like that. So it's been made to be cool. It's been made to be cool in the media. So yes, they might be fitting into a narrative, but the thing is that if you can look at someone and say, you know what, this person's a drug dealer because they dress a certain way, then there's an issue on your part. And that's where you need to educate yourself. And that's where we need to educate these officers and educate white people in general around how to engage with young people. Because it's important. It's so important.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say we're playing to hands. Yes, perception is a massive thing. We do need to talk about these things and understand that, look, some of these things that these guys do are cultural, and they don't even understand what they're doing to some degree. So it's about, as I said, it's about understanding. It's about speaking to people on a very basic human level.
Yes. That's
what's important. And once you do that, you're going to get a better response.
Yes. So this is some of the things that you are highlighting to the police, if you will. That cultural aspect of why we dress a certain way, why we hang out, you know what I mean? That you're adding that. Yes. Yeah,
it's important. It really is important. If we don't do that, have this honest, open dialogue, then that's what the problem is that we've never had this dialogue. We've never had a relationship with the police as a black British community. It's always been us and them. And I think that this might go some way to actually breaking down the initial barriers in which for us to go forward.
Yes.
Because if you can understand somebody else's experience, then you can understand, right, you know what? Fair enough. I get it now. I understand why you did that. Oh, I understand that, you've got nothing at home. You've got no opportunities. So this is why you're out on the streets. And again, it's about understanding the system and how it basically subjugates young people to a history or a future, should I say, which they don't have no control of.
Yes.
It's difficult. It really is difficult. It really is difficult. It's tough.
Yes. Let's move on to the prison system. David Lammy, the MP for Tottenham, says that there's a record proportion in England and Wales with young, I'm going to use the term BME background, or young people are in jail. Right? Now, I'm going to ask in brief, why is this happening where our young people, is it legislation? The prison system exploiting our youths? What's going on?
Yeah, of course. I think that the harsher sentences, which has been proven in Lamy report and stuff, it shows that when you have such a vile outlook on a community, and these same people that are pressing you are the judges, are the police officers, then they can be made to give you harsher sentences because of their conscious bias, because of what they feel that, you know what, where this is the enemy. These people need, you know, they came here and they're taking from our community, they're doing this, they're doing that. Like, they're tarring everybody with the same brush.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is that there are so many positive black people in this country. Like, British culture is basically black culture right now.
Yes.
Like, when you think about the UK, you think about Stormzy, you think about Idris Elba, you think about all these different people that are contributing to society in so many different ways, in terms of the business, tech, you know, industry. We're at the forefront of it, and we're only 3.8% of the population, but yet you want to dismiss that based on your own stereotypes of people, like on a minority. Like, yes. Come on. Let's be fair. Like, if we said, okay, all white men, we know that white men in their mid-30s are higher chance of them being paedophiles. So should we get, you know, more stop and search on white men who, you know, between the age of 30 and 45, because it's proven. It's proven. So should we tar every white man with the same brush? No, we don't. It's situational, it's contextual.
Yes.
So it needs to be the same when it comes to us.
Yes. What about the rehabilitation process? Do you feel that it's effective, or what would you add to it, or what would you change? And is Mentivity, you know, do you have close links with the rehabilitation process with prisons?
Not yet. It's something that I see that, you know, there's other professionals that do that. You know, we're doing what we're good at. And
yes.
Mentoring. So if mentoring becomes a part of something we need to do in prisons, then by all means.
Yes.
But again, I'm not going to step on other people's toes and try to pretend that we're good at something when we're not. We do what we're good at and make sure that we can really just excel. I think the problem that we have is that we don't have enough black professionals. We don't have enough black professionals, and we don't have a kind of system of a kind of, how should I say, of triage, where we can base it around the black experience. Like, you've got, everything is based on Eurocentric kind of methods and a triage kind of system where you diagnose. But how can you diagnose a white man, you know, that's 25 and experience that he has had with a 18-year-old, you know, black boy that has probably lived at home pretty much by himself because parents are out working, or has been on the streets, has witnessed a stabbing, has been told every day that he's inferior. Like, mentally, then he loses a lot from himself. Yes. And then what are you using to gauge that against? What a white man, what you would do for a white man? No, it's got to be Afrocentric. So we need more Afrocentric system around the mental health. And we need more black professionals in those areas, because they can understand. It all comes back down to education and empathy. If you can understand someone's experience and someone's plight, then you can understand how best to support them.
Yes.
That's what's needed.
Yes. Currently, Sayce, we have a knife crime epidemic, right? In 2019, the figures was, you know, through the roof. Let's touch on that, you know, in brief. Why are the youths carrying knife? Are they what's happening there? Is it an initiation ritual? Is the gangs involved? Talk to us on that.
It's a number of things. It's, you know, people, they know that people have knives, and some people have knives for protection, which is fully understandable, not justified, but fully understandable because of the epidemic or almost pandemic of, you know, the knife crime issues. But obviously, it's also about status for some people, that it's about fear and controlling people by fear. And when people, you know, when people literally understand that, okay, that person carries a knife, then you get that kind of unofficial respect.
Yes.
And this is what people are lacking. It's what a lot of young boys are lacking, is that kind of standing within society where they're respected or where they feel validated. And maybe having a knife or being a drug dealer, this makes you feel a certain way. And unfortunately, like, because they don't have anything else to aspire to, that is the most viable thing.
Yes.
And carrying a knife becomes something linked to status, linked to, obviously, if you're a drug dealer, then it's something which is part of the territory. But there are young people that are out there that carry knives just out of fear. And we've got to understand that. And for someone to carry a knife, they don't actually want to use it. It can be a cry for help, But then when you get into a situation where you think that someone's going to pull out their shank and shank you, what are you going to do? You're going to do it subconsciously. You do it before you know it. You stab someone and they're dying.
Yes.
And that's the reality. And this is what we say to young people, is that there's going to be a critical point, especially those that are hard to reach and disenfranchised. We say, look, there's going to be a pivotal time in your life where it's going to be these three options: prison, progression, or death.
Yes.
Those are going to be your options. Now, I know which one I'm going to go for all day, every day. It's going to be progression. I'm not going to prison. I don't want to die. That's what it is. These streets do not love you. These streets do not want you to flourish. So when you understand that and you realize that the street is not a place for you, even though it makes you feel comfortable and you feel that you've got love, that your best friend will be that same guy that will stab you.
Yes.
That's how it is. That's
Sober
how it is,
words.
unfortunately.
Yes, yes. But, I mean, Parliament are debating. They're saying that the knife crime epidemic is due to police cut, right, and lack of social, activities within the communities. Would you agree with that?
I don't agree it's got anything to do with the police cuts. It's down to the 10 years of austerity that we've had.
Yes.
We had the same issue in Glasgow. And when you forget about a generation and you don't invest in a generation of people and you take so much away from them and you expect them to flourish, you've taken away probably nearly 2 billion in education, 1 billion in youth services. This is the future. And you're actually saying, we don't care about this kind of underclass. We don't care about these people. It's because we're not going to invest it. We're going to take everything away from you. And now it's like a giant experiment. Those young people that in 2010, when the coalition government came in,
yes,
those same people that were 8, 9, who were 6, 7, those are the people they're now calling them, the government are calling feral youth. They didn't decide that they wanted to do this. You decided through your austerity measures that you're going to cut down all the funds. You're going to shut down youth clubs, take money from education, the 5-hour offer, all these different things that Labour put in place. And now you want to blame us? No, I'm sorry. That doesn't make any sense. It's just the lack of accountability. And the problem that we have is that we keep voting for the same two parties, red, blue, red, blue. Why we just not vote? A vote of no confidence in any government. Let's have our people's government.
Yes.
And the thing is, we think that we've got a choice. It's like the Matrix, the red or the blue pill. Actually, no, I'm not going to take any of them.
Yes.
I'm going to forge my own, future, my own history, my own path.
That's powerful. Yes, go ahead, Sayce.
No, that's it. That's
good.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
And tell me, do you see other projects such as Mentivity within other communities?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some really good friends that I've met on this circuit, just kind of the television appearances and stuff like that, like with other organisations. And, United Borders is run by Justin Finlayson, who's become a real brother and a friend, who I met actually on the Victoria Derbyshire show. Amani Simpson, who did the short film Amani around his issue when he was younger, when he got stabbed, and he made a short film about it, which has been viewed over 2 million times on YouTube. You've got Steve Oram from Proud and Gifted, who's celebrating the achievements of young urban youth, predominantly black young people, and also now the key workers in light of COVID. There's so many positive people, Dean Akai with AdPac and Access UK, Nana. There's so many people trying to do things. And the important thing is that we have to do what we need to do to survive.
Yes.
But we also need to strategize, as I said. We need to come together and really realize that the buck stops with us. It really does. And until we're willing to put in that effort, we're not going to see the change. We can't ask the oppressor to change these things for us and hope that they're going to give us these handouts. No, we've got to earn it. We've got to demand it. We've got to take it.
Yes. And finally, Sayce, every year we have Black History Month.
Yeah.
What would you teach, right? Whenever Black History Month comes, or when it next comes around, what would you teach?
For us, it's about looking at prominent Black British kind of contributors to this country. It goes beyond the Windrush. You know, there were black British people here before, many years. And some people said that some of the monarchs were actually black too. And I think it's about teaching the hidden history. I mean, I teach it quite contextually. You know, we talk about recent history, we talk about Black Panthers, but we talk about going back to obviously ancient Egypt or things that we've learned and we've acquired. You know, I read, They Came Before Columbus. It's one of my favorite books from Ivan Van Sertima, and the whole kind of theory around us being discovered when we were already in certain places.
Yes.
You know, we black people are indigenous to the planet. You know, the first person in this earth was a black woman, you know, in the cradle of Africa, which is probably Uganda. You know, that's where the purest form of people are, of black people are. And it's just, you've got to teach recent history so young people are engaged and then go back. You can't start with, because it's not relative to them. And it's very, very important that we do that. So for us, it's about the black British experience, teaching that, getting them to understand it contextually, but also because we always look to America, don't we? We always look to the civil rights movement.
Yes.
You know, we've got to make it specific to here, and the young people that we have here and the history that we've created here.
Yes, perfect. Wonderful. Well, Sayce, that completes our interview today on Profiler. I truly want to thank you for taking the time out to have this vital conversation with us on Truth Music Radio. And, keep up the good work. And we will certainly spread the work. And, it's just awesome what you are doing, you and your team.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on. And, just... anytime, man. Anytime. I'm happy to support what you're doing and promote. And, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. We'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
For sure.
Cheers. Well, there you have it. Another groundbreaking interview. We certainly hope that you found it educational and empowering, especially where our youth are concerned. You've heard how important it is to have a father in the home. The benefit of having a father in the home. You've heard how the prison system, due to legislation and so on, can go against our youth. We urge the parents, look after your children, guide them right. And youth, we urge you to educate yourself. Stay away from the influence of drugs, gangs, and crime. I am Jeremiah, and you have been listening to Profiler on truthmusicradio.com. Have yourselves a productive rest of the week. And until next time, walk good.